Welcome back to Sika Strength. Welcome back to Sika Stan. My name is Dara. I'm one half of Sika Strength. And at Sika Strength, we're S&C coaches who are obsessed with finding the best information possible for you, making it a some way digestible content, and then sending it out to you so you can learn as best you can about strength training, power training, speed training, and so on. Now, today we're going to be answering one of you guys' questions, and that is, when is frequency the answer? Now, digging into this a small bit more, what we're talking about here is when should I just start doing more training? So whether you're a weightlifter and maybe you're training 3 days a week at the moment and you want to go to 4 or 5 or 6 days a week of training, or maybe you're doing BJJ and you want to go from 2 evening classes per week to 2 evening classes plus 2 morning classes per week, or so on. So this is really down to the kind of nitty gritty of it. But what you'll see here is all of these answers are going to be quite homogenous across all of the groups. So firstly, I'm going to talk about when increasing frequency is the answer. The first time increasing frequency is the answer, whether it's for a weightlifter or for an athlete, is if they need specific, discrete, be that close or open skill practice. So I have a specific skill I need to practice. It's free throws in basketball, maybe it's catching and passing of a rugby ball, maybe it's foot movement in the snatch and clean. Whatever it is, if I have a specific, discrete skill, something I can easily take out of that sporting context, drop it into my microcosm and practice it here in a safe and massively not physically damaging environment, this is a great time to start increasing frequency. Now, a common case this always pops up with for us is people who are struggling to move their feet on a snatch and on the clean. So moving their feet from a pulling position to a catching position, or maybe from a pulling position to a slightly wider catching position for a power clean for a football player or a rugby player. In this case, you can increase frequency almost indefinitely. I don't need to warm the athlete up to get them to practice that foot movement. They don't need to be in a specific environment or wearing or using specific equipment. They can literally be waiting for their kettle to boil and start doing dip, drive, move their feet to the side. Dip, drive, move their feet to the side. You could be waiting on the platform for your train or waiting at the bus stop. You can stand behind the bus stop, dip, drive, move your feet to the side. You can indefinitely increase this to the point where you are moving your feet in your sleep, and this will continue to make you more and more effective at that skill. In the same way where you're a 17-year-old rugby player, maybe you were playing in the front five, ball handling skills mightn't be that great, and you really need to start working on that now to bring your game to the next level. You should have a rugby ball in your hand for the entire day. As you're walking to school in the morning or waiting for the bus in the morning, you should just be passing that ball across from hand to hand. As you're sitting in the back of your friend's car driving home from school, you should be constantly passing a rugby ball in between your two hands. These kinds of discrete skills, whether they be open skills or closed skills, can be increased in their frequency of practice indefinitely to the point where you're really not going to degrade that skill at all. Now, there are clear and obvious caveats to this. If I start getting blisters on my feet because I move my feet around too much in my suit shoes at work, then clearly you're some way physically degrading. We don't want that to be happening. What we're talking about here is utilizing a really discrete aspect of one skill that is part of an entire kind of holistic skill of playing ball or whatever it is. I'm just taking one specific aspect of that out and practicing it. You don't want any of those physical degradations to be happening, and obviously keep an eye out for that, but it's not going to be a massive concern for you right now. Now, the second time where increasing frequency can be really valuable is if I am seeking a specific physiological adaptation. So we're going to look at the world of weightlifters now for a second. A weightlifter who might have good technique, maybe their squat and pull numbers are coming along quite well, but they're somewhat weak overhead. Maybe they're a developing athlete, maybe they've gone up in a weight class and now the weights they're expected to lift are incrementally larger, but the overhead position is difficult for them to hold a kind of tight and fast lockout. Now, in that case, they're not going to increase their overall frequency of training. Let's say they go to the gym 4 days per week, but what they will do is increase the frequency of one or two specific exercises to the point where they're really eliciting a physiological response in those. Now, what's gone from pressing once per week, pressing twice or 3 times per week. We increase the amount of times we press per week, and this will make a massive difference. Now, this is incredibly obvious, I'm sure, to all the powerlifters watching today's video, because in the bench press is one of the flagship cases where increasing frequency is incredibly effective. We see it across multiple hundreds of powerlifters now at this point. Usually we'll start them off a training block bench pressing twice per week. When they really start peaking into their bench, they're benching at least 3 times per week, and it makes a massive difference. They get more practice in, they get more valuable reps in. Whatever it is, whether it's those muscle structures are a bit smaller and can't handle the same amount of work in each individual session, so we have to do a bit more of it across the week. Whatever it is, it works. It works really, really well. Now, in the case of a soccer player, and maybe you're having a high incidence of injury in your hamstrings every year, and you know you really need to do some hamstring work, then in the same way, you should be increasing frequency of hamstring work. If you were doing it once per week and you're RDLing heavy from pins once per week, you should probably be doing heavy RDL work at least twice per week. And that kind of increase in frequency will almost certainly increase the stimulus going to that muscle and hopefully make that muscle tendon unit much, much stronger. The final area then where you should be increasing frequency is if you are a novice or a beginner in that sport. Whatever it may be, you doing more of that sport, you just seeing that sport more often will be massively beneficial to you. So let's take, for example, again, the person who starts BJJ. Your first few times doing BJJ, you're just getting your eyes open. Everybody is going to murder you. It's going to be very difficult. You'll feel like you're drowning the entire time. The more often you go, the easier that initial on-ramp will be. It's just going to take some time. Having a bit more time in the gym, having a bit more time rolling around with people will certainly help. This is also the reason we like high rep work for people at the start of strength training blocks or at the start of weightlifting blocks. It gives them more exposure. Just more reps, more time on the bar, more time on the court, more time on the field, whatever it is massively beneficial. Now, the difficult thing here is that if you're starting a team sport, so let's say you're starting field hockey and you're kind of really getting into it, maybe you really enjoy it, but you'd like a bit more exposure, you can't suddenly say, okay lads, I know we train on Tuesday and Thursday nights and we play a game on Saturday mornings. I'd really love if we could do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday nights and Saturday morning. That's not going to work. But what can work in that case is go back to our discrete close skills. Go back, get a hockey stick in your hand. Maybe it's just you and a buddy and you're going to be passing over and back to each other. Maybe it's you and a wall and you're hitting it against the wall and controlling the ball as it comes back each time. Whatever it is, just getting a bit more exposure will certainly help a lot. Now, moving on to the times when you should not be increasing frequency. When increasing frequency is not the answer to the question you've asked yourself. The first one of these is if you've just been kind of showing up to training. So a lot of the time, a really common thing you'll get, someone will sign up for a BJJ competition in 3 or 4 months' time. Suddenly they go from doing 3 classes a week or 2 classes per week and now they're doing 3 or 4 immediately. No matter what it is, it doesn't have to be BJJ. We can be talking about any sport in context here. If you're just showing up to class or showing up to training sessions and you kind of just hop on the bus, sit in your seat and you get off the bus when it arrives at your stop, you don't need to start increasing frequency yet. What you do need to do is you need to be going into the gym fully mentally turned on. You need to have a clear and obvious plan for the information you're going to be taking into your mind. So maybe you commonly do 2 techniques, then some specific drills, then some rolling at the end of class. You need to say, okay, this is how I'm going to process these 2 new skills I'm going to learn today. Or maybe I know I've been working on half guard, so I'm really, really going to focus on this aspect of half guard. Maybe I'm going to really focus on the underhook when I'm getting on top in half guard. Whatever it is, you're really going to focus on 3 or 4 aspects of that specific skill. Ideally, you'll have something like a notebook that you'll write this down in before training, and you'll really solidify that in your mind. Then when we go into our skill practice, Maybe it's king of the bat, maybe it's something along those lines, where it's a somewhat defined microcosm of the fight itself. Maybe it's one person starting on the floor, one person starting on their knees, whatever it is. You should have a clear and obvious plan for what you're going to use that time to do. What are the skills you want to work on here? What are the aspects you want to work on here? Maybe you're working on being incredibly offensive and not maintaining any position for any great length of time. Maybe you're doing the opposite of that. You're really working on controlling people and just holding them in position. Whatever it is, have a plan for there. And then when you go to the open sparring at the end of a session, then have a very clear plan for what you're going to do. I want to do these 2 takedowns. I want to do these 2 passes. And I want to do these 2 submissions, or whatever it is. Or I want to get to this position. No matter what opens up to me, no matter who comes around the corner, no matter how big and strong that guy is, or no matter how light and fast that guy is, I'm going to practice these specific things. This is where you go to first. You having your brain fully turned on and fully locked into what you're trying to achieve in every session is what you look to first in a group training environment. Only then do we start increasing the amount of frequency you're going to do each time. Finally then, the time you really don't want to be increasing frequency, and when frequency is not going to be the answer, is if you're starting to get a bit physically drawn out, a bit worn down, tired, fatigued, you feel a bit achy, you feel a bit sore. Frequency is clearly not your answer then. So a lot of the time people will say like, oh, I'm just really not feeling fit. I'm not feeling strong. I need to start doing an extra class per week. And this is something, if you trained in like an S&C training gym or a CrossFit gym or a High Rocks gym, you've probably had this feeling. Everyone around you is flying it. Everyone around you is really pushing hard. And now you're saying, I do Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays here. Maybe I need to start coming on Tuesday and Thursday mornings as well. What I would say is the opposite to that. What you should probably do is, okay, maintain the level of training you're doing at the moment, but how well are you recovering? What's your sleep like? How well are you eating before and after training sessions? Are you fully hydrated all the time? Have you then started looking at your kind of physical recovery stuff? Are you taking any supplements you need to take? Whatever it is, if you're starting to feel like everybody else is overtaking you, that's not immediately your point where you go, okay, I know I'm already worn down. I know I'm already exhausted. I'm going to start pushing myself more so I'll be fitter and then I'll be less exhausted by this. That is not the answer. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you have more questions like this, please drop them down in the comments below. Most of these questions come from our Q&A live streams. They come from our members. They come from emails we get on a daily basis. So please do let us know. If you'd like to see any of our training programs, you can have a look at all of them. You can try them out for free during a 7-day free trial. It's available on iOS and Android. It's the Sika Strength app. Please let us know if you have any questions. sikastrength@gmail.com is the best place to get us.